Hello again. This is Clayton, and I just got out from seeing the latest My Little Pony episode, Rarity Investigates, which, by the way, here's a fun fact. It's written by 4 writers for the story. Megan McCarthy, M.A. Larson, Joanna Lewis, and Christine Sonko. And I must say, all 4 of them worked off each other perfectly in this episode. This is absolutely wonderful. In many ways, it's an episode that reminded me of Mystery on the Friendship Express, with its mystery theme, but it didn't feel like a rehash. Instead, it felt less like a love letter to classic cinema, and it felt more like a classic love letter to film noir. So the episode starts with Rarity, still at Canterlot Boutique, It's still at Canterlot Boutique, and with her going over to a dinner with Rainbow Dash for the Wonderbolts, because Rainbow Dash is still part of the Wonderbolts reserves, as we've seen in testing 1 2 3 when she managed to get into the reserves to begin with. Glad it was finally building up to something. And unfortunately, after Rainbow Dash shows up and after they get ready for this show that they're going to do, this Wonderbolts are doing a show, unfortunately, Rainbow Dash is framed for sending in a fake letter that caused Spitfire to leave the team for leave of absence for a while, because apparently Spitfire had to take care of her mother, but it turns out her mother wasn't sick. So Rainbow Dash is accused of committing a crime of forgery for the letter, and Rarity has to investigate. And this is where the episode really takes off. The film noir parodies that they do in this episode are brilliant. And for the longest time, I thought Rarity was getting off track by constantly pointing out her feministic, her costume, and pointing out minute details like the cake, and pointing out curtains, things that didn't really seem to matter for the investigation. But the fact that they all came through in the end, and the fact that she used every single detail that she found to her advantage, really worked well. Not only that, but a new character, Wind Rider, made his appearance. And he's not really that interesting of a character, but I thought his voice actor did a good job. He sounded very Mark Hamill-esque, if you know what I mean. Even though I know it's not Mark Hamill who voices him. So, this episode I thought was paced very well too. It seemed a little slow at the beginning, but it works well once the film noir plot comes in. The fact that the whole episode goes into black and white, there's a ton of monologues that Rarity has when she's essentially a mix of a femme fatale and Sherlock Holmes. I mean, and I really loved those gags that were throughout the episode. It felt like I was watching The Maltese Falcon or Scarlet Street again. By the way, if you haven't seen those film noirs, you should. They are classic films. And in many ways, this episode, in my opinion, fixed a lot of the problems that the last episode had. The pace fit the episode a lot more. The episode was focused on just Rainbow Dash and Rarity, which cut the problem that Amy Keating-Rogers had when she seemed to force every single member of the main 6 into a single episode. I like having all members of the main 6 in one episode, but I felt like they all needed to do something. And there are episodes where certain characters feel a bit wasted. Yeah, because aside from Rarity, all the other main 6 members were kind of wasted in Mystery on the French... No, not Mystery on the French Express. Canterlot Boutique. Yeah. All the other members of the main 6 seemed a bit wasted. But this episode changes that. It keeps it focused on Rarity and Rainbow Dash, and seems to take its time when it comes to the actual mystery plot, even though the mystery plot doesn't come in until about 10 minutes in. Therefore making the episode very fun, very interesting, and in many ways rather darkly humorous. Rarity's dialogue was completely on point. I felt that her dialogue was some of the best that she's had. Tabitha St. Germain's voice acting in the episode was brilliant. And I think her voice acting performance is just as good as her appearances in Season 1 and 2, which is something I've really been looking forward to this season, considering it's rather interesting, considering that she's gone from having 0 episodes in Season 3 to having 2 in a row this season. And in many ways, I find that for the best. Then there comes the ending of the episode, where turns out, I'm not going to spoil it, but it makes perfect sense, and it's the perfect bookend to a very nearly perfect Rarity episode. My only problems with this episode were, let's just say, I felt the other Wonderbolts could have done a little bit more. We could have seen them a little more in the episode. I mean, Soren and Spitfire make good performances at the beginning and endings of the episode, but they don't do much otherwise. I would have liked to see a little bit more of them. And also, Wind Rider himself is not very interesting. He's mainly just there as the cool guy who ends up being the culprit. In a way, it's sort of like the characters in Scooby-Doo, how there's that one character who shows up at the beginning of the episode. Shh, not now! I'm making a review! I'm rolling. Sorry about that, that's just, I'm doing this in the middle of the day. Okay. You can watch. Sorry about that, my little sister's here. Anyways, where was I? The ending of the episode was rather brilliant in that sense, even though Wind Rider was not a very interesting character. He's mainly just there as the cool foil to Rainbow Dash, though I will say it's like Scooby-Doo, where there's the one character at the beginning who has 1 or 2 lines and doesn't seem like he's relevant to the plot until the very end when it's realized he's the culprit. But otherwise, I thought the episode was rather good. Joanna Lewis and Christine Sonko have only written Castle Sweet Castle before this, but I've got to say, both women are surprisingly good at these types of stories, and I'd like to see more of them in Season 6 if they show up again. Also, Megan McCarthy, you're still awesome, and M.A. Larson, you prove that you've still got it. I give Rarity Investigates an 8 out of 10. See you next week.